Hi weaving friends, today we are assembling the Lojan Inkle Loom. The first step is to treat it with some beeswax if you are doing that option. You do not have to treat it, it comes as raw wood. The treating is just to protect the wood. It also deepens the colour a little and it also smells beautiful. Lojan does sell this beeswax if you want to get it there, or you can do some other suitable treatment that you have already. So if you are doing a treatment, you want to do that before you start assembling the loom. Now there may be some roughness on some of the circular parts. On two of my pegs, they're just very slightly rough, and Lojan include a fine piece of sandpaper if that is the case for you, so that you can just smooth over any rough parts. Then you can go over that with your beeswax before you actually start assembling the loom, and then everything is beautifully smooth. So we'll start with having a look at the parts that you get when you pull your loom out of the box. It comes with a very handy screwdriver. You'll be using that a lot. This is a clamp for clamping to the table if you want to use that option. And I got a little thank you card from Louet, one of the owners, which is beautiful. Then in this little box comes all the bits and bobs that you need for putting the loom together, which is really handy. So much better than plastic packaging where you have to fish around to get what you want. A box, you just lay it open, it's all there for you, ready to go. And then in the other box, there are the assorted pegs and also the actual belt shuttle for weaving, which is like a plastic shuttle. I wasn't sure of that to start with because I haven't used a plastic shuttle before, but it does work really well. Of course, you'll also get an assembly booklet. This loom is really easy to put together, but I wanted to share it with you and for anyone who needs that extra little bit of input. So this is the main part of the loom that comes already assembled with all the holes drilled and everything ready to go for you. So first of all, we're going to pick out the two longest pegs. These stand out because they're longer than the others, and they also have holes in different places. And I'm just giving the measurement there for you to avoid any kind of confusion. So those are the first two things that we're going to pull out of the box. They're the stabilizing pegs. I'm also going to pull out some of these black end caps, we'll call them, and these are a brilliant feature of the loom. You can either put these on your pegs before you attach them to the loom or afterwards. It makes no difference really. But these are made of rubber, and they, for the stabilizing pegs we're about to put on, they stop the loom from slipping all over the place when you're using it and when you're putting it together. And then for all of the other pegs, the end caps stop the warp threads from slipping off, which is fantastic. The Lojan pegs are a little longer as well, which I really like. You can get a few more threads on there and you really don't have to worry about them slipping off the edge if you're using a lot of threads. So I'm grabbing the longest screws. There are quite a few of these. We'll use them for different pegs. And I'm looking at the indentation, the hole with the indentation near the end of the peg, and I'm going to slot this peg into the little indentation under the loom, and then the screw goes through so that the screw head sits in that little recessed area. So it's not going to stick out and scratch your table or anything nasty like that. This is where we start using the screwdriver. When you're screwing your screws in initially, you don't have to screw them in mega tight. Just screw them in so that everything's stable, and then you can go back afterwards and tighten everything up too. I always do that when I'm putting looms together anyway, because you know, you may make mistakes. You might want to swap one peg to another place for whatever reason, and if they're not screwed in too tight, then that makes life easier. And you can always go back and retighten. So we're going to do the same with the other end. You can see that there's that indentation on both the peg and on the loom underneath. And that's how you know that you can put those pegs in there, that they're the stabilizing pegs. So we're just going to screw that in so that the head of the screw goes into that recessed area. Okay, and then your loom can stand up nice and easy. So what I did with one of the end caps here is I realized that I should have put one of the end caps with a hole in it. There are 2 end caps with holes and they go on those stabilizing pegs. So I'm just replacing that. Those end caps come off pretty easily and go on pretty easily, so no big deal. Now I'm going to choose one of the shorter pegs. I have a hole in one end and one of these long screws. Okay, and then in the other end it's just a blunt end, and we'll be putting the end cap on that. So this one is actually my starting peg. Just turning around so that you can see what I'm doing. A little bit challenging to put a loom together and film it at the same time to get the right angles and to be looking at the screen. Where are my hands? Am I obscuring everything that I'm doing? Anyway, this part's pretty straightforward. You're just going to hold that peg, you're going to screw that screw in, and that's going to be our starting peg. And then we can pop our end cap on the end of that one. Every peg has its own end cap, which is just fantastic. Okay, so there are lots of holes here. They don't all get pegs put in them. There is at least one hole that is for the tablet weaving board if you choose that option with your Inkle Loom as well. I do have the tablet weaving board, but I'm not attaching it at this time. I'm just getting the actual Inkle Loom together. And later on, when I have a bit more time, I'll experiment with the tablet weaving board. It looks really interesting. So this one I'm putting at the bottom hole at the very back of the loom. You can also configure this loom to be left-handed or right-handed. How awesome is that? What a great feature. And also, because all of the pegs screw in rather than being glued in, they're movable. So you can configure the loom to what you're doing at any particular time. If you don't want as many pegs on, if you find that they're getting in your way and you're doing a different kind of a warp, then you can just remove the ones that you're not using. Again, pop the end cap on. Grab the next peg. So these are just the pegs with a hole in one end, and then they're blunt on the other end where you put the cap on. So this company, Lojan, is a company that was put together by Jan Louet and his daughter, Loes van Eycken. So a father-daughter team, which I absolutely love. And I also love what they're doing as a company. So Jan was one of the co-founders of Louet, and the company has since sold, and he and Loes have started this company on their own, and they're making spinning wheels and looms. And their idea is to make tools that are accessible and sustainable and user-friendly. And certainly from what I've seen of this loom so far, they have achieved that outcome, definitely. I will be having an actual review of this loom coming up once I have a little more time to use it. I am using it right now, but I like to give things a really good experimenting before I comment on them and give my thoughts. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. So watch out for that video coming up if you think that is interesting. And I'm also a reseller in Australia for Lojan. So if you are in Australia and you are interested in one of these looms, you can contact me and I'll give you some more details and answer your questions and give you some pricing as well. If you're in another country, go on the Lojan website. I'll link that down below. And there you can look up all the stockists all over the world. You can find the one that's nearest to you. So now we're doing this hole, again with just one of the regular pegs and screws. So this first part of putting the loom together, and a lot of putting this loom together really, is just putting pegs in holes. And just following along, make sure you follow along with your instruction booklet where it labels all the parts and to make sure that you've got all the parts and that you're putting them in the right places. For example, I mentioned that one of the holes is specifically for the tablet weaving board. And so if you're not using that, then you need to know where that hole is. The instruction booklet also includes some little extra information on making a warp, the different configurations you can use with this loom. It shows you how to make heddles if you want to make your own heddles. You can also buy heddles. There are Lojan sell textile heddles that are specifically sized to this loom. And I'm using those. Usually I make my own heddles, but I'm actually using those on this loom and I really love them. They're fantastic. So that's an option as well. Okay, so I'm just pointing here at where this next peg is to go and grabbing the things that I need to do that. Oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm checking with the instruction booklet to make sure I don't put it in the wrong hole because one of these holes is for the tablet weaving board. Louet did send me a tablet weaving board, so I'm really looking forward to trying that out. And they also have tablet weaving cards available. All of these things I'm mentioning, all of these extras that Lojan make, you can purchase through me if you are in Australia. Okay, so readjusting and ready to put this peg in. Okay, so I have the peg and this is going to be the heddle peg. It's a little bit thinner than the other pegs. You'll notice that, and it comes with its own end cap that is sized specifically to it. So you can't really mess it up because it is different to the other pegs. So I did mention that there is a simple inkle band pattern included in the Lojan booklet. If you are after some more Inkle Loom patterns, I have a couple of free ones on my website and I will link to those down below. And I also have a really comprehensive online Inkle Loom weaving class. Okay, so grabbing another of our regular pegs. And putting that in the last hole before we get to the top of the loom where we use some different pegs. You see that hole above the slot right there? That's the tablet weaving hole. I just put my thumb over it. But that's the one that you want to leave free for your tablet. Also, the top pegs are easily removable. So if you're going to be tablet weaving on this loom, there's at least one peg at the top that you don't want because it'll get in your way. And so you can easily remove that, but you'll see that in a moment because we're going to attach them. And we'll see how easy they are to attach. So they're a different sort of a peg. They have the screw inset into the peg. You don't actually apply it. Okay, last peg at the bottom. So you see how many different pegs there are and different configurations you could do for your warp depending on the length that you want. And as I said, I will talk more about the actual loom and using the loom in a future video. Okay, so now we're going to see those pegs that have the screws inset. There are 3 of them. They're all the same size, so it doesn't matter which one you choose, and they all have an end cap as well. And they each have one of these star knobs as well. So I'm going to do the back top peg first. You just stick it in the hole, and then you grab your star knob and you just screw it on, as easy as that. And so removing those pegs is just the same. You just unscrew it and pop it out. So we're going to do the same for the next peg. Pop the end cap on. And that one's going to be the top peg. So if you have any questions about this loom that relate to weaving on it, better to wait. I'm going to get that other video out as soon as I can. Can't promise that it's going to be super fast, but I'll do my best. And then, you know, because often I'll make a video and that kind of answers people's questions rather than me trying to address everybody individually. Okay, so this is our last peg that's inset, and it comes with a washer. This is our tensioning peg. It looks just the same as the 2 other top pegs that we just put on, but it's got a different purpose. It goes into that slot. And then on the other side, we're going to pop the washer in place. It's pretty tight. There's not a lot of the screws sticking out, but it is doable. And then pop that star knob on there. So yeah, I dropped it because it's a little bit tricky. Once it's on, it's fine. Yep, and that is our tensioning peg. Very easy to use, very easy to put together. Now, there are a couple of short screws. So I'm at the front of the loom now at the bottom peg, or the start peg, as we usually call it. And there are 2 spaces, 2 holes for these little screws, and you don't screw them in the whole way. These are basically just for your starting thread to wind your thread around it. But there are 2 instead of 1, so you can do like a figure 8 with your thread if you want to. Depends what you normally do with your starting thread. But if you screw them all the way in, then there's no room for your thread to sort of go around the posts of the screws. So just leave a little bit of space there. And of course you can adjust that afterwards too. If you find you've left too much space or not enough, no problem, grab your little screwdriver. And now I'm just tightening up those stabilizing pegs that I started with. And they also recommend in the booklet to just come back after a couple of weeks and retighten everything, because there will be some settling and some movement because it is a really new loom. So the Lojan Inkle Loom also comes with this Velcro strap, and it has a couple of slits in it, and it lines up with 2 holes that are on the side of the loom, on the outside of the loom, and a couple of little screws. Now this is it's a shuttle holder, that's what its purpose is. And I actually had to ask Louet about this. What is this piece of Velcro? I'm not sure. And I thought it was a shuttle holder, but she confirmed for me that yes, that's what it is. I'm not actually putting mine on at this time, but if you want that feature, you can just screw the Velcro on and then it'll grab your shuttle. You can put your shuttle into it each time you've finished. If you are a notorious shuttle loser, I'm actually pretty good at keeping track of my belt shuttles, so I'm not using the Velcro at this time. So here is the beautiful finished assembled loom. It is very quality loom. It is very stable and it's lovely to look at, but it's so functional. Again, I'll be doing that review video, so you can definitely look out for that. And I personally am very excited about what Loose and Yarn are doing together here. I just think it's so wonderful that they have a family business and that Yarn's not quite ready to put down his tools yet. He's still flowing with ideas and Loose is working with him on that, and it's just a wonderful thing. So again, pop me a message, send me an email if you're interested in Australia getting your hands on one of these looms.